under one child per woman on average. In this status quo world, we keep the same economic models that assume infinite population growth and amass more debt to pay for our public spending. Our social safety nets stay the same, which those rely on more inputs from workers than withdrawals from retirees. That's what we call a pay, and amass more debt to pay for our public spending. Our social safety nets stay the same, which those rely on more inputs from workers than withdrawals from retirees. That's what we call a pay-as-you-go system. Western Europe is already struggling to keep these systems afloat because in many of those countries, there are only 2 workers for every retiree. You can see how top-heavy the population's age structure is here and how in the next few years it will grow even more so that way. In a status quo world, the world's most powerful countries continue to increase military spending and try to project power beyond their borders, even as their national budgets strain and the recruiting pools for soldiers shrinks. Hello, Russia, China, and maybe even the United States. So what results from failing to adapt and clinging to the status quo? Systems overload and break. We have higher labor costs, which leads to inflation, and that just makes it even more expensive to have children. Social security systems go bankrupt, and we lose the gains we've made in reducing old age poverty. But a head in the sand world isn't as bad as a fearful one. In a fearful world, the ability to choose how many children to have and when to have them gets taken away. Something that's easier in less democratic settings. And not good news here either. 20 years ago, almost all of our aging countries were democracies. Now a quarter of them, those with median ages of 35 or higher, aren't free. And I know we see this idea of coercion in science fiction, but it's not just science fiction. In 1965, when Nicolae Ceausescu took the helm in Romania and he wanted more Romanian babies, he forced it to happen through invasive measures. Fertility temporarily spiked, but not without dire consequences for women and for those children, many of whom were abandoned to orphanages. In a fearful world, immigration becomes more restricted. There's more hatred and division of majority groups, fear being replaced by people who don't look like them. As aging, shrinking countries they lose the willingness and ability to think about causes outside their borders and fund those. We can't come together on pandemics or climate change or other transboundary issues. Does any of this sound familiar? I actually don't think we're fully in this world yet, even if way too much of this hits close to home. But I can imagine how we might get there if we aren't proactive to shape the world we want. And what kind of world would we want? Well, in a resilient world, we compete to attract talent from across the globe and set aside our nationalist tendencies. A shrinking world is in our future, but obviously some places are much closer than others. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Tanzania, fertility is still high enough that each generation is twice the size of the one before. Those young and growing populations can be a tremendous resource for their national economies. If you have investments in human capital, other policies, they can help these countries reap a demographic dividend. And they can be a resource to the global economy too. I mean, US and Canada, they stand out as still growing despite the low replacement fertility in both. In fact, Canada had record population growth last year. Because aren't the only models for immigration, and there are obviously but no one said this would be easy. And this means your things not being easy. We're gonna have to work longer. Me too. And that's because nearly half of economies are diverse. Fewer than 10% 60 plus to go from 15% of the total to 30%. It'll take Ireland 92 years, the United Kingdom 89 years, and Germany 7 years. Same demographic shift will happen now. It'll take India 34 years, Mexico 32, Iran 20, and Thailand only 19. It's happening faster now. We really need to realize this because those countries have to act, including suites of policies like moving away from informal economies that increase the risk of poverty in older ages. There are so many people on the planet right now, just between the ages of 65 and 74, that altogether they'd be the third most populous country in the world. But there's far more of them than there are global migrants, which we don't hear about, right? And there'll be 800